So one thing I want to say before we get started with is I received a few emails regarding subjects and the freedom surrounding those subjects. To what extent are you allowed to write about anything you really want? And to be clear, I am sort of giving you that rein. I was interested in seeing if the techniques as described in the textbook would help inform you in terms of coming up with a subject. Our first essay will be an informative essay where you find a subject you're interested in, and then you inform an audience about that subject. I would just like you to have a general idea for where your paper might be headed. We will eventually sharpen up your subject a bit and turn it into something we could crudely label academic or argumentative. So you'll eventually take a position with something surrounding your subject. Right now, I'm just interested in seeing you approach a subject, I guess. You're sometimes assigned a reading and you're asked to write about what you read. In this class, we're kind of doing the inverse here. You're coming up with a question or an idea, you're researching it, and you're writing about it. So we're changing that up in the way how that's delivered. I'm not purveying you with a subject, rather you're sort of purveying me with one. You're providing me with an idea that you then do your own research for. And so maybe this will take place. Maybe this will take the form of your major. Maybe you're something you're interested in terms of your major. Eventually, we're going to move into something where it's going to be you're going to be approaching a wider subject in a greater discussion, and you're going to take a position within that greater discussion. So yeah, I hope that clarifies some of the ideas of where we're headed eventually. Yeah. So, but before we can get to that point, we have to first discover what qualifies as a good source for our research. So here's just some basic ideas. A good source usually employ fact-checking. So most major newspapers in the U.S., I'm thinking of places like the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the New York Times, have most news agencies actually hire editors that make sure that whatever information they receive is true and quantifiable to some extent. So they have some sort of institutional peer review. So this is oftentimes taking place in like research articles. You see this a lot in academic journals, scientific journals. In order to submit to those, you oftentimes have to have you send your information in, they review it, and they send it back, and then they have you edit it. And it's a sort of back and forth. Oftentimes the person who, if you want to submit something to an academic journal, you send it to someone, and it's sort of an anonymous person who then checks, make sure everything's proper and everything's in its place and everything checks out. And then finally, comes from credentialed sources. So this is a sort of active ethos. This is sort of if the person involved writing this is very well credentialed and really knows what they're talking about without real question. Even then, though, I think it's best to have some sort of backup and to make sure that even that information is in fact true. So this comes to the point of Wikipedia. So this is actually from Wikipedia. I call Wikipedia is not a reliable source. So this is a question regarding Wikipedia. So this is just granted this is an explanatory supplement to the Wikipedia Reliable Sources Guideline page. But this is sort of a sort of ongoing debate, like to what extent is Wikipedia a reliable source? And we can actually see why it's a large debate. Because here's an example: the nuclear energy policy of the United States. So if we just parse through this article, so the nuclear energy policy of the United States developed within two main periods from 1954 to 1992 and 2005 to 2010. And so we see this here. It says dubious discuss, right? It says the material near this tag is possibly inaccurate or not factual. And then it actually has a discussion page where various sides actually talk about, like, okay, this is actually true. It was interesting. And then we have, so let's look at some things that are verified, right, that have a sort of parenthetical. So here. The implication of Fukushima. So this is verifying the statement earlier about the Fukushima plant. So you can click here. And this actually has just a complete. This is a research article, right? It has an abstract. It has citations. So that is good information, right? So to what extent is Wikipedia a bad source? It is up for debate. And I would just like to see in this discussion post just maybe a few lines about like what you think of the story. So even if you want to say that Wikipedia is not a reliable source, I would like for you to figure out why that is. What are the benefits, and what are the problems in citing Wikipedia? Because while it is very much it is a site that can be edited by anyone, it's also a site that can be verified by anyone. So yeah. So here's some general sources for your research and whatever you want to do with your subject. So we have the Auburn Library Catalog, which is part of the Auburn Library, and here's another Library of Congress. These are just a few that came off the top of my head. There are obviously many, many more. You can also use the super secret method of typing your subject into Google and wildly clicking around. So whatever. So some databases, newspaper source. So in the Auburn Library, there will be a section for databases, which is slightly different from the catalog stuff, which is sort of like what the library has physically or whatever proprietary information they have that Auburn keeps on hand. Databases are outside sources that collect information about a variety of subjects. But anyway, let's try it out. Right, so this is going to the Auburn University Libraries. Let's go to, let's take a look at the databases. Sure, let's go to here. And, that's what I'm looking for. Okay. So this is a database that deals with newspapers, and so here you see say abstracts, your USA Today, New York Times, Wall Street Journal. So that's really good for a lot of subjects that you might be interested in. That might be a good place to look. Any of these would be really great to just search for your whatever information is relevant to your subject. Academic Search Complete is a sort of a site that actually has a ton of different resources for almost any subject. So I think that's be great for whatever you're looking for. But even those databases also are relative to whatever your interests are. There are databases for psychology. There are databases for history. There are databases for literature. Databases obviously for science. A lot of different science resources. So I hope that gives you some idea of where to go for sources.